time and budget equal your priorities. I imagine when you hear this, some of you are thinking about how I might be talking about the way that organizations who say they want to do restorative justice work often fall short because they don't prioritize this learning and this practice, budget or time-wise. And I'm going to get to that, but I also want to be reflective of myself, both as a person and a business owner. Everybody has 24 hours in a day. Hopefully somewhere between 7 to 9 of those hours are dedicated to sleep. I know that's not the reality for many people, but with the 16-ish other hours that we have in the day, what are we doing with them? Over this last year, I've had to radically shift how I spend my time. Again, becoming a father, being the parent to a now 9-month-old has definitely disrupted the way that I sleep, but also navigate so much of how I navigate the world. Where I used to be able to wake up and have mornings to myself, get centered, do things that are in the vein of self-care. My mornings are in some way, shape, or form at the mercy of a very, very self-centered being who requires cuddles, feeding, diaper changes, etc. I'm someone who had to go from getting Amplify RJ work in whenever I felt like it during the day to someone who has to do this work within a certain amount of time. In some ways, that's great because it's helping me get more systematized, but that's not historically how I have done this work, so much of which is creative. And so with that systemization comes time allocation. It's easy for me to get caught up in doing the things that are fun, creative, and easy, and harder to do some of the more structural, organizational aspects of running a business that need to get done if I'm trying to reach the goals that I'm trying to reach. Making time for sleep, making time for family, while balancing doing this work is always going to be a challenge. But even within the hours that I allocate for myself to do this work, allocating both time and financial resources, mostly people that I am working in collaboration with, most effectively is super important. And that's something that I'm still trying to manage to optimize how we, quote, amplify, unquote, RJ. But there's also a piece of this time and budget equal your priorities lesson that comes from the work that I've done with folks in schools and organizations, or rather reflective of work that hasn't gotten done with those schools and organizations, right? We are working at Amplify RJ, we are working with a handful of schools and organizations to help train up their staff to be able to engage in restorative practices that manifest in us facilitating conversations. It also looks like us strategically planning with leaders. It also looks like us doing staff development and training. But none of these organizations exist with the sole purpose of being bastions of restorative justice practice, right? And so how they allocate time and resources to this often inhibits the speed or the effectiveness at which this work is implemented and embedded into their culture. I'm so grateful for school leaders or organizational leaders who will invest the money, of course, but more so the time to both participate as leaders and give time for their staff to participate in the learning and in the practice. Because it's one thing to say that you value these things, but having ideals does not equal execution of those values and those practices. It's so easy to default to the things that are easy for us, that are habits for us. And in order to get different results from what you've habitually done, you need to build different habits. That often means allocating time for activities that you haven't historically done. That doesn't mean adding time to the day. That means taking time away from other activities that were being done to add this time in for learning and practice. There's no one right way to do this work. Everyone's on their own journey with this work. We don't all start in the same place. We're not all actually trying to get to the same place, but there is not one right way to do this. And there's no one time frame to get this done. Living this restorative justice life is lifelong work. And while there is a sense of urgency to make the changes immediately, we also have to do it in a way that's sustainable. So as you're thinking about your goals and things you want to accomplish this year, restorative justice related or not, I want to invite you to think about the time and resources you're going to actually allocate to make sure that you have space to achieve those things.